Sup nerds, I'm Aaron.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Tom.
We're Never Board Gaming, and today we're looking at Kaiju Crush by Fireside Games. Not to be confused with Candy Crush.
Which is what you were all thinking.
So the first question most people ask when they see this game is, oh, it's just like King of Tokyo. Which is not a question,
It's
but
a statement. So that is a fair assumption to think, oh, it's very, monster versus monster, King of Tokyo, and, you're controlling this area, but it's not. It's a very thinky, movement-based game where you do battle each other, but there's no dice and there's no, what else is different about it than King of Tokyo?
Well, it's nothing like King of Tokyo, really, just in main game mechanics. In theme, sure, but in main game mechanics, King of Tokyo is a roll dice, Yahtzee style, decide, which ones you're going to use. Here, it's 100% like chess style movement base.
And even though there is combat between players, that's almost like, not an afterthought, but it's like a secondary thing in the game. Mm-hmm. It's definitely not your primary goal.
And it's card battle, but the card battle is rock paper, scissors. So
it's advanced rock, paper, scissors, but it's rock, paper, scissors.
Which is a very interesting mechanic to put for battling. Like, there's not very many games that do that, besides, like, rock, paper, scissors. Or, like, I think there are a couple other games that use that, but I like it with this because you're your monsters. You're like, oh, I'm swinging my tail at you, and I swoop out your legs, and now you're swooped out?
I swapped out. Swapped you.
I do think that makes this very accessible to younger players, without it with it being more complicated than just roll a dice and whoever wins. Because any game where you have just all-time equal stats and just whoever wins the dice roll it's a very weak strategy. Not strategy. It's a weak design. Like, again, just roll dice and whoever rolls the dice wins. That's total random. This takes it one step up without making it like a bunch of stats and like battle cards. Very easy to understand for someone that's younger.
Since we're talking about it, I'll go ahead and talk about my main complaint about the game is that every single person has a player power. And I felt the guy that I was playing with most recently, which I have a little, not just the one time, because every time I've seen this guy being played, it doesn't seem to work out for them, is Mecha Kaiser. Is draw 6 cards instead of 5. So you have these cards that are basically the rock, paper, scissors portion of it, and you draw 5 and you play best 3 out of 5. This guy gets to draw 6. So he has one card he doesn't have to use. He has more options going into it. But when playing against ones where they can win ties in certain areas, I felt this guy to be a lot weaker. Or at the very least, this one needs to be, you definitely don't hand this to the person if it's their very first game. Because the rock, paper, scissors is that kind of conundrum, thinky, well, if he wins ties on the fire breath and the other things, so then I shouldn't play those first. I should play these first. But then he's going to think that I'm going to play those first, but then he's going to think that I'm going to think to play, It has that kind of aspect to it. So maybe either for a new player, don't give them this, or for a new player, don't play with special powers. Just play, because the special powers only come in when it comes to combat. So if you left that out, you're not missing out on a huge aspect of the game, really.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that even if you're teaching someone who's very new to gaming, when we're teaching this game to Tom's mom, we'll probably play our first round without player powers just to help simplify it as much as possible. And then once you want to mix up a little bit and add a little bit of difference, you can add this back in.
And the key word there is a little bit, because really it's just the combat. And in theory, you could never fight each other. You probably are going to fight.
Combat is such a minimal thing in the game. It happens a lot. You can get a point swing, you can swing the points with it, but realistically, it's definitely like a secondary way or a tertiary way even to get points.
The day calendar's working for you.
And since battling is optional most of the time, unless you land on a space with another monster, it's optional. Like, if you're landing adjacent, you don't have to battle if you don't want to. But if somebody lands adjacent to you and says, hey, I want to battle you, you're not out of it. You have to battle them because they want to battle you.
I'm going to battle every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have the guy who won ties. Yeah, play Mecha Loser, and then we'll see who's laughing.
I guarantee you, if we ever play this and I get that one, I'll still battle every time.
And lose every time.
So
it has nothing to do with Tom's ineptitude.
It's solely this.
Solely this.
I think it's just not as fun to play as. I think it's a little it gives you all of your advantage before the fight starts. And again, it's not a huge advantage. You just get an extra card. But then when the battle happens, it still comes down to just rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, but think about Aaron's thing is he wins ties on those 3 cards. So there's 3 cards that he could play where he has a higher Yeah, he has a higher probability of winning.
Mm-hmm.
For you, you had 2 cards that you could play where you had a higher probability of winning. The mitigation is the mental aspect of who's going to play what when.
Yeah.
Because knowing that affects what I would play, But
again, yours is a
still.
lot less strategy because we're not trying to you're not trying to psych us out with what are you going to play. You just have more options to pick from.
Mm-hmm. One more option to pick from. And we're not even talking about the blue guy.
But that's not even the biggest thing. The biggest thing about this game is the movement.
True.
On your turn, you either take the movement action you have in front of you or the public one. If you take the one you have to give it up. But that is very thinky. You're like, okay, I could use this one or I could use the public one. Do I want to give up my special movement and let Tom use it on his turn? Or should I take the public movement and use mine next turn, and then hopefully Tom will move away where it won't be as a detriment for me to give up this movement point? Because the tiles that you land on are worth victory points, and some are worth 4, some are worth 1. If I give this up, Tom can easily get to this 4-pointer. Maybe I don't want to do this yet.
But it's not just the victory points that are on the tiles themselves. It is set collection of those types of tiles, and it's the spatial bonuses that you get from all these bonus cards that are out there. So every single move you make, even though in theory you only really have 2 options, well, actually if you bounce off of parks and stuff, you have more, but every single move you make is pretty dicey. It's not just, I'm going to go for this 4 because 4 is objectively better. It's, well, if I go for this 4, how am I messing with these? How is that helping with my set collection? So it's definitely, teaching it is really easy for younger kids, but there's a lot of stuff to think about every single move.
Especially because the more places you go, you smash them, and once a place is smashed, unless you have an ability that overrides it, nobody can go there again, even if it's your territory. Mm-hmm. So it's really easy to pin yourself in a corner. And then, so that's when you really have to think about, how am I going to get out of this corner? What movements am I going to take that's going to allow me to get out? Or else I'm stuck. And you could just be stuck there for a very long time.
Until you die a natural death.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Putting these goals off to the side is actually optional. You can do just an A, you could do A and B, you can do A, B, and C, A, B, C, D. It just adds more and more layers.
No, go over the options again. I don't think they got
Wait, could you do just a B?
Yeah, I guess so.
Man.
It's super... But, when you get down to the D card,
yep.
That one actually has, an in-game effect that's really cool, and it's for each of the different tile types. One of them, it lets you move more. One of them, it allows you to collect a bunch of these tiles, on your turn for winning. The one Wes had in our last game, whenever you use your special ability card, you draw another one, as long as you still have that
normally
card.
It's just a once per game
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But getting to draw more.
It's almost like Longest Road in
Catan.
Catan, yeah.
Ticket to Ride.
And Ticket to Catan.
It's kind of like that, because if Wes takes it, somebody else can take it by getting more of those tiles. It's just, you have to try and get them.
Well, and I think the major point here is the A, B, C's, and D's aren't just more options. They're different categories.
Mm-hmm.
That one is in game. The other ones are most bonuses of these sets. The other one is more of a spatial, the line, the square, the whatever.
So at the end of the day, Kaiju Crush is an abstract chess-style movement, area control-ish game with a super fun, cartoony monster theme pasted on top of it. That typically I feel like games that the theme just is pasted on, and not that it doesn't fit with the gameplay, but it's very much you could strip the theme away and it'd still be the same game. I feel like this game is actually a huge benefit for it, because if it was just an abstract game, I think it'd be hard to get a lot of people at the table. Tom doesn't like abstract games kind of as a rule, so I almost think that it would be just me and Aaron doing this review if it didn't have this fun theme on it. But the theme did make it fun, and you did feel like you're smashing buildings and fighting other monsters, and your rock, paper, scissors where you have I'm sweeping your tail, I'm breathing fire on you. I don't want to oversell that and make it seem like it's just so thematic, but it does definitely take this game to the next level.
Yeah, the theme definitely does come through a lot more than you would think, given the fact that we kind of have to explain it as it's an abstract game with a theme put on top, right? I kind of doubt that they were let's make a game about monsters fighting and then put it to a more abstract, mechanics. It could have been. I don't know. I'm not Nostradamus over here.
Maybe they just came up with the name first, and then...
just, hey, bro, what'd you do?
Hey, Justin. Hey, so for Kaiju Crush, this isn't Justin.
That's a phone. That's not my dad. That's a phone.
The two games I would compare this most to is the
King
Duke,
of Tokyo.
the Duke,
Yeah.
and Onitama,
Okay.
which are very similar games. But in Onitama, when you take an action, you swipe it over to the side, and then your opponent will get that move after their movement. This is kind of like a 4-player game of that, because Onitama is just a 2-player game, which you can play this 2 players. It's going to feel similar. But in Onitama, you had to take the actions in front of you. In this game, you have that public action that you can take. There's a lot of, the areas you're trying to take over, plus there's battling. It's not just straight up chess, abstract thinking. This is, there is abstract in the way you're moving, but the battling, it just adds a extra layer of, okay, if I can get next to you, I could just claim the spot, but I can actually battle you, and one of us is going to get some points out of it. This game is definitely a game that I look forward to playing. It's just a lot of fun. 4 players sitting down playing a semi-abstract monster smashing game. I can't not want to play that.
I will agree with Aaron, I agree with Aaron that I like the game. I think Wes was actually the one who said that I probably wouldn't have liked it if it didn't have the theme on it, and that's true.
That was a really good point.
That was Wes just knocking it out of the park, hands down. But I've never played Onitama because I look at it, I'm like, eh. And actually, I only played the Duke once, and I was like, this is dumb. I don't like it. But the theme, it's not just the fact that there's a theme pasted on, because it really isn't pasted on. It's it's pasted on, but it's pasted on really well. Okay,
it's permanent.
You can't. It's permanent markered on there.
It's kind of soaked in a little bit.
Yeah. Let's do some more analysis. I do feel like I'm doing the things that the monsters need to be doing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not just like, that theme there isn't just, okay, well, in theory you can say that you're doing this, but you're not. But I'm like, no, we're smashing it. That building is gone. My footprint is there now. We're going to fight. Yeah, the fighting, even though it's really rock, paper, scissors, it's like, oh, you sweep the leg. Oh, I get it. The fire burns. But, oh, it doesn't burn your scales, because your scales are all like, I do like all the different gold cards and the set collecting. I'm really surprised at how much each decision matters. You can block yourself into a corner. You could negate some of your points for the spatial goals at the end. Like, there is an awful lot there. My biggest complaint is that I didn't think the Mecha Kaiser was balanced. I'm not saying there's unbalance in this game. I'm saying this particular dude, you have to think about it a little bit more when you sit down to play. So, in a lot of games, though, with player powers, you can't usually just hand out all the player powers randomly. You do still have to think, like, even Cosmic Encounter, when I'm sitting down with new players, I'll, deck build. These will be fun together and mix them up. So I think that's not a big issue. That's not different from a lot of other variable player power games, I wouldn't think.
Kaiju Crush is probably going to be one of my go-to games that I'm playing with a lot younger players. Tom talks a lot about playing games with our nieces and nephews. They're getting older, and we're really excited because they're getting to that age where they come in town. We're like, maybe they can play games with us.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll have a reason to play these silly games.
And I think that not only the theme, but the artwork and the simplicity of the game is going to be a great grab for that, to get them in the game, something they can understand. We can simplify it down and then add more to it once they've really grasped it. So I'm really excited for that. I think that my really only negative for this game is that the component quality is definitely less than immaculate, which I feel like they really have to balance, price point and value of the game, because it's not a super valuable game that it needs to be $60. So they need to keep the price point down where it's accessible for people to buy for their younger kids. It's probably going to get torn up a little bit because kids are playing with it, and it is just kind of a simpler game. So I definitely get that. I'm not faulting them for it, but while I'm playing, that's definitely something that I noticed, that these little cards are pretty thin. The actual cards are sleeved up, so that definitely helps. The tiles aren't bad at all. The tiles are nice and chunky. I think that's great.
This is about the same as Hot Shots, I'd say.
Which was I wasn't in that review, but that was my one complaint with that game as well.
With the exception of the fire thing. So yeah, with the exception of one component, they kind of...
And you could make everything have linen finish, and these could all be cards too, and these could all be minis that come pre-painted, that have animatronics in them that actually breathe fire.
If you want to hear more about this game, I actually had a chance to sit down with Justin DeWitt and interview him about this at Gen Con. We'll have a bubble up here and a thing in the description below that you can go check out that video.
While you're down there looking for that link to watch our Gen Con interview, there's going to be a link to buy this game off Amazon in case your local game store doesn't have it. You should definitely click down there to get yourself a copy.
Neverwhere Gaming highly recommends that you do that. And in fact, actually don't just get one copy, get like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 copies because, we need more money. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored. My God, shoot farts. Aaron's like, Uzi. I'm like, my God, shoot farts.
I like this game so much less now that you compare it to Cosmic Encounter.
God, I don't even think you don't like Cosmic Encounter. I think you're just like, Tom's gonna bring a Cosmic Encounter, I'm gonna dump on his face.